Let me introduce myself. I'm Paul Flynn. I've been doing security work, a software developer, for about 30 years. And, I started in the 90s. I was doing work with my first job out of college. I went to Towson University. My first job was working at a bank, taking the mainframe and connecting it to the web. And we were using client certificates, really state of the art at the time. So I've been doing security from then. And then I worked in Silicon Valley. I went out there and worked for another security startup. And I was out there during the dot-com bubble. And after that, I worked at eBay. I worked at eBay for maybe like 11 years. And eBay in the early 2000s was the number one site in the world. So we dealt with scalability issues and, of course, security there. And then after that, I worked for an IoT company that deals with emergency software, or emergency devices. When you fell off a ship or if you got lost hiking, you would communicate with over the satellite network. And after that, I worked on healthcare.gov. So I was in charge of the front end and the login and the security around the front end. And since then, I've joined another startup called Virtru. And Virtru is a data security company. And Virtru is really nice in that, so the recent supply chain attacks, our DevOps group, our security group really has a great methodology, great tools built around it. And we were prepared for these attacks. Most of them were on JavaScript NPM. So I think, I have a lot of experience with this, and I wanted to show where what's happened recently, what we need to look out for, and where we're going, right? And where we're going is really heavily influenced with AI at the moment. So if we go to supply chain 101, just what is that? What is the supply chain? And it's really about, right, you're building the software, and don't build everything from scratch. You'll include like open source components, right? You'll have dependencies, some paid, most are open source now. And when you get those components, you'll do vulnerability scanning, right? There's a lot of tools for that. So at Virtru, we use, it must be like 4 different scanners. And then you have a software bill of materials, the SBOM. So it's really giving us the software that you're using, what software they use. So you end up with a huge upstream of your things that you're using. That's your supply chain. And then when you build it, you have your CI, right? Your continuous integration and your continuous deployment pipelines. So that's a lot of what we do with DevOps, right? And the idea of bringing infrastructure security, which is some people just call it DevSecOps, right? Shifting left the security aspects of production, right? Really bringing it down to DevOps. And you really want good build reproducibility, right? When you build something, you want to be able to build it the same way again. And artifact signing. So when you do build that, right, you build it in a secure build environment where you want to sign it with your private keys. And that's how you can bring it out of that secure environment and deploy it knowing it hasn't been tampered with. And then with the DevOps, you will be putting those artifacts in the repos. You'll have your container artifacts, right? You'll build your software, you build containers for that. And then a lot of the production monitoring will happen. So a lot of people use New Relic, Datadog, Splunk. So those sort of monitoring incident things in an incident response, right? There's when you do notice something with your monitoring tools, your DevOps team has an incident response type of process they go through. So that really shows what DevOps is and how the supply chain fits in. So next, what's missing, right? There's a lot of what should I say? There's lots of industry standards and some sort of regulations that say like FedRAMP and stuff. Oh, you need to meet this, right? You need to meet these sort of a checklist basically. And from that, you can always think of it as like the bare minimum. But what you don't have is stuff about the new attacks that are happening for our supply chains, right? There's no real good threat models that are being identified and communicated, and part of those, requirements for, like a FedRAMP requirement. So there's a lot of not a good guidance, right? So that's what we're going to try to talk about today. And so we'll go over some real world incidents and how they attack, what the bad actors, what they're thinking, and what we can do to help mitigate that. So, and again, we're DevOps, right? This is us. So we protect the supply chain, what comes in, what comes out. So that's what we need and what we'll talk about. So the next one, the maintainer dependency. So there's some attacks that happened. What's interesting is the way that these attacks are happening. So the XC utils, what happened was there was a contributor, right? It's open source. There's a contributor that, built up a reputation over like years of, giving commits. And then finally they put in a backdoor. And this is a backdoor to SSH, right? What a huge a huge compromise on this. So this is showing, right, social engineering, right, being able to gain trust and do this attack. Now, the other ones that's been happening are NPM account takeovers. So NPM, just getting phishing emails for, it's easy to find a contributor, someone that owns an NPM account, and phish them. So there's been a lot of NPM account takeovers. And then typo squatting. So that's like if you were to type React, but you misspell it, right? Then it pulls in a different, nearly identical dependency, but it's been hacked, right? It's got some malicious packages. So yeah, so the maintainer, you got to make sure who the identity, right? Being able to track identity. Is an email account good enough for a maintainer? And then the social engineering aspect, if it be over years or if it's just something quick and I really need this password or something like that. If just a typical social engineering attacks. And then trust. You may have trusted an OS package a while ago, but do you trust it anymore? You need to really reevaluate some things. And in some package managers now, you'll see this isn't maintained anymore, right? The things that haven't had activity for a while, should you trust that? And then there's some real big attacks with worms, right? Self-propagating worms. So in the next slide, and it's just happened. So I'm just going over some of the attacks. They're really fascinating. But this is an interesting attack where N8N, right? N8N is a workflow using agents. So this one had an attack. This just happened a couple of days ago. And it's a level 10, right? Level 10 attack. They're attacked the NPM packages that N8N use, specifically the Google one, the Google Ads one. So if your N8N workflow used Google Ads, they were able to get into your whole workflow. And your workflow has so many trusted secrets, right? You're connecting to your source code. You're attaching to your email, you're attaching to your Jira, right? What this is level 10, the highest, right? These are huge attacks. So we need to be aware of this. And then the next one is the self-propagating worms, right? If you've seen this from Dune, how do we pronounce this? Shah-Halud. So it's really the mega worm, right? This one is really, okay, let's see. What would happen is when your CI/CD pipeline would run, it would, while build time, it would propagate itself, right? It would create another repository. It would grab your secrets and it would put it in there. And this is a build time attack with a worm, a self-replicating worm. So this lasted for quite a while with these self-propagating ones. So this is something to work to we need to worry about, right? And it's hard to know when they get in. They'll grab all your secrets. And what the secrets they targeted was like Postman, your AWS secrets, your HashiCorp Vault. Those are, incredible. That's your whole system right there, those secrets. I hope you're seeing the magnitude of these attacks. So the next one, the CI/CD. Before, like 10 years ago, 5 years ago, you were really about protecting your production servers, right? If you're in a SaaS, you were always trying to make sure that people wouldn't do SQL injection. People wouldn't do cross-site scripting and grabbing cookies, stuff like that for these web apps. Now, they're attacking the CI/CD with the stuff I just went through. So one of the popular things, and we use this at a couple, I think it's really popular, the GitHub Actions, right? So one of the issues with the GitHub Actions is those get attacked frequently too. And people will just put the version on there, right? Like V2 of some GitHub action. Well, those are floating tags. So you want to start tagging with the commit hash, right? This is one vector you can protect against. And some other things like your build logs. Hopefully you're not dumping those secrets to logs. Now, there's usually good filtering right before stuff writes the log. There's an interceptor that filters that out. So if you're not doing that, you need to add that sort of secret exfiltration. And your tokens, right? All the tokens in the other secrets, you need to rotate those frequently. So you got to be careful of your long-lived tokens and in your hosted runners, right? These could get compromised, and it's good to rotate those too, right? So building new ones don't have long-lived runners. And there's some other things here, right? Pinning your actions. Oh, the egress control. So I've seen this a lot. So what happened is the self-hosted runners, what I've seen is people will allow public internet access. So you really want your builders to not be able to reach out. Okay. All right, yeah, and the next slide, your artifact trust. So this is important. So it's really not about once you go through your DevOps pipeline and you put your artifacts into a repository, you can't just rely on that repository. You really want to not trust your pipeline anymore, right? These sort of compromised packages, that your supply chain things could be getting into your pipeline. So you want to make sure as soon as you build a nice artifact, it's gone through the checks, right? The security scans, you want to sign that artifact and then put that in a repository. And then when you pull it out, you want to check that signature. And the same with images, right? Your containers, you want to treat that and refresh those and scan those. And yes, and then the problem is, and this is a problem with a lot of attacks, is it'll be weeks. Sometimes it's weeks before you know you've been compromised. So you want to do a lot of monitoring and anomaly detection, right? So if something was to, and a lot of these supply chain attacks, they get found because someone's like, oh, okay, my metrics show that it's 50 milliseconds slower. Why is that? Why is that? So that level of metrics is what you need to be able to say, okay, there's an anomaly. And some of those anomalies are, extra seconds because there's a worm replicating or such. So you need nice metrics on your DevOps pipeline. All right, the next one, which is we've got a couple of people with working on JavaScript, right? So the NPM stuff, right? NPM, the special case. So NPM is in a bad state, the bad state. And I've talked to a couple security people, and you should avoid it. You should avoid it. The whole system has always been such a mess. And now, right, here's this quote. NPM is a remote code execution as a service. Man, it's when you pull down an NPM package, it's got these hooks that pre-install. Bam, it's already executing stuff in your dev machine on your CI pipeline. You do not want that. You do not want that. And yeah, when you say npm install, you'll get like 5 gigs of code that comes down, and it's compiling C++ code. Terrible. And then it's just so old, right? Being able to check. So npm audit has been added, right? They've been putting stuff on, but I want you to know that the npm audit is really you're just slapping stuff on something that's broken. I really, really want people to not use npm. So that's my big takeaway I want you guys to have from this talk. You need to move away from NPM. So in the next one, how do we do that, right? There is these new frameworks, right? Using Node, using NPM, move away from that. Dino is nice, right? There's a real nice core package that you get with Dino. They have their own, the way that they import's different, and the permissions, right? Being able to run, access the network and run locally. It's nice. Dino is nice, and it's TypeScript, and that's good for developers, right? TypeScript is, you get your types. So that's, so I'm familiar with Dino. And Bun, no, I haven't used Bun, but Bun is fast, and I think their dependencies are better. If anyone has used Bun, yeah, if you'd like to share your experience with that, but Bun is fast, and I think it works better with NPM, but that's not a good thing. I like Dino here. And then the third thing is, can you build without dependencies, right? If you're starting a new web, a new web interface that goes on your network interface, can you build it without any dependencies, right? And this is, I said I started coding in the 90s. That's how we did it. You write everything. You write the JavaScript. You write this. And with the way that LLMs are, it's possible. So I would say, consider this too, creating everything. Next, the beyond NPM. So there's the NPM, I voiced my concerns there. There's still some issues with some other popular package managers, right? This is your supply chain. This is your package managers that pull in your open source supply chains. And Maven's kind of nice because it pulls in private repos, but it does have some high risk, right? So you need to lock down your Maven, write the signatures, and there's some nice tools from Sonatype that helps with the Maven repositories and assigning and stuff like that. So if you're still on the Java stack, and Java's nice, but make sure you lock it down with some good tools. Python, I've been using UV lately instead of PyPy. But so yeah, there's some issues there. And Ruby's, I don't have too much experience with Ruby, but I do with Rust and Go modules. So with Cargo, it's pretty nice. It's pretty nice. And Go modules is pretty nice too. So again, with these, you want to pin, right? You want to pin versions. So with NPM, by default, it automatically updates when you do NPM install, right? It'll update a patch version. And what'll happen is when someone's repo gets a maintainer, so they get compromised, and what the attacker does is input in just a patch release, but it's got the attack in it, right? It's got, it's able to change your Bitcoin wallet or something, entering someone's Bitcoin wallet just because they put it in a patch. So you really want to put very specific versions of your dependencies, and you get that with Cargo and Go modules and stuff. And in NuGet, I don't have experience with there, but that one is not as secure as the others. So the next is the infrastructure attacks, right? So we're DevOps, right? We run a lot of Terraform, we run some Ansible, we run some Puppet, and with N8N, right, that attack, what a huge attack. So these are all high. So we need to be very cognizant of the attacks. And if some people can explore how they've done any sort of, N8N's the worst, I think. It should really be extra high. But if anyone has an experience with locking down their DevOps tools, right, this really drives the infrastructure, right? When we talked about the runners, the build machines, right, that's really comes out of this. So, yeah, if anyone has any thoughts, or maybe at the end of this, what you've been doing for that. So the next one, the vendor guidance, what do I want to say here? Okay, yeah, so a lot of the groups here will get software vendors that provide certain packages, right? These are not open source packages. So you really want a lot of the SBOMs. So it's not just the SBOMs. You really want to know the trust, right? You want to be able to establish a lot of the trust. You want those artifacts signed, and what else? So you definitely need the necessary checklist, and then the threat model. Right. So you want to make sure that your vendors that provide your software also have met a lot of your guidelines that we've just gone over. So the next slide. And these are almost typical DevOps stuff, right? You don't want your prod secrets on dev machines, right? NPM install on the dev machine. You could compromise those. Your token scopes. So you'll see this in GitHub, right? They have the legacy tokens you can get or the new ones. You really want the new ones. You want to be able to say there's like 50 checkboxes you could say. You want really minimal token scopes on all your processes through your DevOps pipeline. And yeah, watch out for your SSH stuff. And there's a nice tool. There's a nice tool called a patch lens. This gives you a lot of insight. So when I was sharing this slide with our security guys, they were like, you should mention patch lens. So if you need extra visibility into your pipeline, this is a nice tool to look at. All right, so in key takeaways, right, the checklist, right, the FedRAMP type stuff, that's a bare minimum. But we really need to, especially the way things are going quickly, that's the bare minimum. The CI/CD, man, it used to not be like this, but this is where they're attacking now. Bad actors, we got to watch out for that. Do not use NPM, and this is DevOps, right? This is us. So we control this pipeline, and we need to secure it. So that's some quick takeaways. Now the next one, right? So this is the AI-powered threat horizon on this slide. So a lot of the attacks that are happening are not only, so now you have these bad actors and they now have the knowledge, intelligence to create these tools, right? To be able to do great social engineering, right? They could portray a person in need and, respond autonomously. So there are even packages that will get deployed, right? These bots that will have intelligence with them. So imagine a worm that gets into your system with intelligence, right? It's able to say, okay, these are the open ports. There's this VPC I can get to. And so it's like a person inside your perimeter. So these are what we need to look out for, right? And in the speed, right? The speed of the threats. So we used to, this is last year, we would depend on our CVEs coming in. Well, those might be too late. The spread of these vulnerabilities, the spread of these attacks happen so quickly and at a scale so large, we can't rely on waiting for a CVE coming in. The social engineering. People get, even last year, people are like, oh, I can spot AI. I can spot AI videos, AI text. That is not the case anymore. That is not the case. So do not, it's great. So yeah, so be careful of the social engineering. Yeah, so even that intelligence can even rewrite itself. Right? You have a worm that can rewrite itself. Imagine cloud code in your system as a bad actor writing new code. So the autonomous, which I went over, and then and if you rely on AI to help protect you, well, you got to be careful that there's a poison, right? An attacker could poison your AI system, right? Your LLM. So this is what we need to be careful of this year, right? So the next slide, right? Defending. You really got to zero trust. Everything that comes in, you can't trust it. So SBOMs are okay, but you really need the SIG-store, right? Being able to cryptographically sign what we talked about before, signing your artifacts. Well, you want your upstream artifacts to also be signed, and you need a chain of trust for that. The hermetic builds. Yeah, so I alluded to that before. You don't want your build machines to be able to call in and out to the public internet, and you want to minimize your attack surface, right? The less dependencies, the better. And again, for the web apps, if you get zero dependencies, that would really minimal attack surface. And we've kind of gone over some of these. You really want to know how your system works, right? You want to be able to monitor it. You want to detect anomalies, right? The timings and stuff. So you want to be able to have that great monitoring, not just production, but your DevOps pipeline. And the culture and stuff, right? We need to adapt. We need to know what's coming. And we can't just say, okay, we have our perimeter for our build machines. That will not work going forward. So we really need to educate. So if you could educate your DevOps people and say, we need to be careful of this. This is coming. And it's really, the AI stuff's already here. And it hits fast and it hits hard. And so we will continuous education. So here at Columbia at DevOps, we will be updating you guys with what we learn and if you can share what you learn. So it's, and this is an important point, right? The way the world's going right now, it's moving fast. So we need to communicate with people we trust, share what we're seeing, share what solutions we are putting out there, and, reach out for help when we get stuck. So yes, so that is it. So the last slide is our questions. So yes, and if you would add me to your LinkedIn, we will be doing more marketing, meaning I'll send out more information around this. That's kind of, so that's it. So yes, any questions? And I will quiz each of you. So Christian, what did you learn from this, if anything? Yes, go ahead. Yeah, if you have time.
You mentioned about restricting outbound access on runners. I like the general security idea, but it does make me raise another question, which is now we're getting into like air-gapped runners almost. You have to, so I guess that has the premise that you have your own local vetted repository of dependencies that you've pulled down and put through some scanning process and put your official approval on, and your build process would only use from that pool, not just willy-nilly going out to npm to get a version of a package. Is that right?
Correct. Yes. Yes. And maybe we could go over that some other time. But yes, so you have an air-gapped runner within a repository. And you may have two repositories. So you'll have a public incoming repository, and it'll go through a hole into your air-gapped environment, right? It only goes one way. It goes in, and then so you have your repository of all your supply chain artifacts, and all your runners would only pull from that, right? It would build from that. And the other part of that is you want to do scanning of artifacts that come in, that go over the one way. You want to scan it coming in, you want to scan it at rest, and you want to scan it when it comes out. So the point is, when you do learn about these secrets, or when you learn about an attack, or you learn about a new or you get a new tool, a new scanner, you will find new secrets. So it's a really dynamic scanning repository, but you need to have those when you do the air-gapped builders. And do you have experience with that, Dan? Have you done those repositories like that?
I've maintained our own local repositories, scanned them with various tools, but not to the extent that the runners did not have outbound internet access.
Okay.
But I do like the concept, because if you do point the build tools to pull from your local approved repositories, then it shouldn't be too much more difficult also to have some tools detect if there were any outbound access attempts that you weren't expecting.
Yes, and that ties back into the monitoring, right? The DevOps monitoring. So when you, if something gets through the scan and it's trying to call out during your build, you want to know that. You just don't want it to fail silently, and then you flag it, right? It's not some third-party security scanner that's flagging it. You're marking that as a bad dependency, right? And then you flush that. Yeah, it is advanced, but I've seen it work. We do it now at Virtuit, our data security company. It is possible, and it's interesting when you pull these tools in. Some of these will call home, right? And you're like, it raises flags, so it's nice. It's nice to have that. So, okay, yeah, so I proposed an idea of building your web front end from scratch. Is that possible?
I mean,
what are your thoughts on that?
I mean, I can't say too much, but basically, we're doing that without.
Okay, excellent. So it's doable. That's the main takeaway, right?
I mean, yeah, with AI, it's really gone like it actually has like 10x like every single developer at our company. So it's like anything that would have taken like a year now takes like a month or two. And if you were willing to spend a little bit more on like tools for like integration and everything, like and testing and everything, some more AI, then it goes even faster. That's been the case at our company. Yeah, but I'm still working on that legacy code base right now because we still need to support it in the meantime, right? And we haven't released the new one, so I can't say anything about it.
Yeah. No, that's excellent. That's excellent.
So I do have a question actually also.
Yeah.
Sorry, did I cut you off? I'm sorry.
No.
So I used to work for Unraid as a contractor. And when I was doing that, I actually didn't know any C++ or C, but they were like, hey, here's this desktop tool. We need you to maintain it. No one in the company knows how to do it. We have other stuff we're working on. So as I was building, I mean, you mentioned something that caught my eye. One thing was like a release tag without a commit hash, like that's not attached. So a floating, you mentioned like floating tags, right? Why would that be a problem?
Oh, okay. So the floating tags is, okay, so NPM is really bad at this, right? And GitHub runners, GitHub Actions, right? They don't do this. But what'll happen is, some other package managers, what'll happen when you pull it, it'll do a hash of what you pulled, and then it'll lock it, right? You'll see some lock files. NPM will say, oh, it doesn't really respect. It does to an extent, but the idea is a hacker gets access to a repository, and you can just say move tag, right? I forget the command, but you can just move a tag from one commit hash to another one, and that is the attack, right? That's it. So the label is now a different commit hash, and that commit hash has an attack.
So does that mean if you see, I've only done this once, so I don't remember, and I don't even know if I did properly, to be honest. So if you attach a tag to that specific commit hash, does that mean that's static? It cannot change after that, and if you do, you need to bump the version up.
Correct. Yes. So now it's pinning. It's called pinning. When you pin it to a commit, now you have a different problem, but it's not as bad. You're like, a patch version that's legit comes in, right? It fixes this issue. You have to go manually bump those up. And what it used to mean is you would have to just bumping versions manually and then retesting that. So the idea is you really want your DevOps flow to be able to have a human in it to make sure that what you're bumping and it's trusted, and you want to check that.
I think I got it. I was confused there for a sec, I think, when you were presenting, but I think this cleared it up.
Okay, yeah. It's I can show examples if you need more, but it's really pinning, right? Pinning to a commit hash, and you want to do that in all your dependencies. And the downside is you have to bump for patch versions, which is actually nice. If you know exactly what you're pulling in. You're pulling in this fix, right? You put in this commit. You can double check these little very minute commits. But yeah, okay.
Gotcha.
Let me just try and say so a little bit differently, at least in a way that makes sense to me. Is when you're pulling packages that come from some Git repository and you're pinning to a certain version, that version is a Git tag, and that Git tag correlates to a certain commit, and it's possible to move that tag to a different commit, so you don't really know if it changes. So there is some work in getting the exact commit ID, the commit hash, and pinning to that instead of just the tag. So yeah, that's a really good point. I had not thought about going that deep with it, but that's great. You shouldn't be too hard to script that either.
Right, correct. So for our workflows, one of the first thing that runs is it checks the workflow and makes sure that everything's pinned. So yeah.
Thank you, Dan.
Could I ask, do you mean like the dependency versions?
Yeah, right.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you want to pin those.
And then could I ask, do you have like some type of security gate that would like fail the vulnerable package is scanned?
Yeah, so at my place of work, we have at least 4 scanners. So they will, and they happen at different steps of your DevOps flow, right? And so you want lots of scanners. And yeah, right.
I have a question, Paul. Well, I am relatively new in this world. I've been studying about a software engineer, like literally from July last year. But I've been using a lot GitHub, the NPM dependency that you mentioned. And you were right. When you install the dependency, it only shows on the screen something that is loaded. And then you get like a package of many models and scripts. Right. And you have to deal with that. And sometimes if you're going to update your repository, and then someone else is going to update it, sometimes they ask if you want like a newest version, and they put some information. And I want to say like thank you for this, because it didn't cross to my mind, because the AI is being developing a lot to help us as engineers. But I wasn't even thinking, what about the authors that see the AI to trying to build tools to also get into our projects, get into some information to trying to hurt people or scam people? And what are we doing to try to avoid all this? You also mentioned to don't use the NPM.
Yep.
And do it from scratch, which I was maybe waiting to see the other developers to comment.
So yes. And
no, because I thought that like Ajit was mentioned that what it takes you for 1 year to build before, now it takes you like a month because using the AI. So it's like you need the AI to work faster. But on the other hand, the AIs can also be a trap for you to get these kind of attacks into your system, since everything is becoming more fast to download, fast to copy and paste, and you trust like what you're copying, you're pasting. So I mean,
you're right. So this goes back to trust. Who are you going to trust, right? Are you going to? So Ajit's saying he can build a whole website without NPM, right? He can use his trusted AI, right, to build this. So and I mentioned what's called AI poisoning, right? You can put those in. You can get a bad model that has, right? You go to Hugging Face, you pull down a model. That one could have been, there could be bad actors that put something inside the LLM. So you also have to really trust your LLMs, but you need to, I personally trust Claude Code, right? I make sure that it's set up and uses a token, and make sure it doesn't go to another model. With Claude Code, you can actually put it to different models. I use Claude Code to Anthropic for my account, and I use a Codex account, right? OpenAI. And I use a Gemini, and they have nice tools that say do a security review. They have those tools, and then you create a prompt. You say, as a security professional, do a scan on this software, and it will find it, right? So you want to not only trust one model, but you want to trust a couple, but have them check each other. Scan that guy's code, scan this guy's code. So that does get a little bit expensive. You work up to that, but I would start with a model you choose, and do not use NPM when you tell it to write code or something. And one other thing, so LLMs are great tutors, right? You always ask, why are you doing this? Why are you doing that? But have them build it from scratch and ask them questions. So that's my advice.
Thank you, Paul.
Yeah, it's real exciting. Yeah. Good luck, man. Good luck.
It's something that I learned in a hard way, was that not always the AI gives you like the accurate or right information. There is also something called, maybe some of you might know the term, like is hallucination. When AI sometimes doesn't know the answer, the AI itself hallucinates or make up something to fill in the information that it's not capable of. So if you have two AIs to check that information to each other, as you mentioned, that can also be helpful. Right.
And it's the way they train those models. The newer ones will be better. But they're like, okay, you got to give an answer. But they can only do it within a certain amount of compute time and stuff like that. So they're like, okay, I'll just give them this. So that's what a hallucination is. They have to give an answer. So what you really need is a model to say, I don't know. So look for that for the new models. But yes, so that's good.
Can I ask, do you use any LLM models in the pipelines? Like for
Oh, so okay, yeah. So I have been using local models. So imagine, right, Dana and I were talking about a GitHub runner within its own air-gapped area with its own dependencies. Imagine if you had a trusted in there, then you could ask it to do again these security checks, right? Check this code, right? Check this dependency or something like that.
the runner, Kubernetes runner.
Right, a Kubernetes runner. Yeah, I didn't go over Kubernetes too much, but yes, yeah. Imagine you have even Docker. Docker has some nice LLM. So imagine you have a contained, what do they call it? Just local models. If you had that within your pipeline, I wouldn't really call out to a big service provider. I would have local models, and if you get that into your pipeline, then you can train that model, right? You know your pipeline. You can train it. You can put LoRa's on it. That would be a nice. And I haven't proven this out, but my thought is, you have a good known LLM AI agent working for you to protect you. So when these worms come in that evolve and have their own intelligence, then you battle it out basically, right? So this is kind of like Tron-like, but we may be headed that way. So it would be nice. And I'm exploring this now, but I don't have enough information. But yes, if you had an LLM that you trusted in your pipeline, that would be nice.
Okay, yeah, because I've worked with Augment Code a little bit, and so the entry that I'm seeing that the companies want to do, they want to target the merge request first. So like you have your Code Rabbit, I've used GitLab Duo.
Yep, right.
Augment Code, they were more like they supplied like prompt, but they didn't give me a Docker image, so it was tough because I had to like let them down. But Code Rabbit's been working pretty well to just give reviews.
Yes, very good, very good. Yes, so we use at my place of work, we use like 3 or 4 of those, so you'll get multiple reviews. So that's a good tool to use. Yes. Julian?
Hey, let me chime in here a little bit. So I am a, can you hear me well? I am a front-end coder by necessity. Mostly wanted to do back-end, but front-end is where I use NPM. And I had formerly thought that was standard practice, but I can see where it is pulling code from like all over the place. So that's going to be a difficult switch for me to make, I think, to Vite with NPM running the front-end to maybe Vite with PNPM or one of the other ones that you mentioned. So that's kind of a migratory, I think might be in my future.
I would, yes, that is an exercise, but JIT Express that LLMs will write a lot of that code. So code is almost cheap to make. Right. So you can take your current code base, you could say reverse engineer this and then rewrite it. And you create a lot of your testing around it, right? Automated tests, unit tests, integration tests, pen tests, all that stuff. So when you migrate from one system, an old NPM system, to a new one, you need to build that whole test infrastructure around it. And that should be part of your pipeline anyway, your DevOps pipeline, right? Being able to run integration tests and stuff. So before you start any exercise, like what you mentioned, Julian, I would say make sure you have all that DevOps security testing in place.
You've got me scared now about this whole phone home thing.
You should be scared. You should be scared. That is intent. Yes.
Is there a, other than maybe running a Wireshark on your application and listening specifically for things that you didn't put there, is there a good way to listen for a phone home from your running software?
Wireshark is nice, but there's, what did we use? I think, I don't know off the top of my head, but what did we use? I forget the names. I don't have a good name. If anyone in the chat could throw something. But yeah, there are tools like that. And even if, I don't want to speculate. I don't have that info. Yeah.
Julian, if you if you build a container image that you use for a runner that does build and testing, if you install a firewall in there, like a standard Linux firewall D, you can set an allow list to maybe only communicate with internal network, like internal subnets, and then you could maybe use the logs in there to capture any blocked traffic that wasn't destined for internal networks.
Yes, very good, Dan. Yeah, did you follow that, Julian? Right, it's firewalls.
Yeah, I think I've got it.
Okay, yeah, I know Julian, so we can go over it more. But yeah, that's great. Thank you, Dan.
I had a Docker question. Do you guys build your Docker images with Docker Build, or is it Docker Build X?
The Build X one.
Oh, okay. Everybody's using that now, right? Because
yeah.
Surprised when I first seen it. And then also, have you ever used a tool called Witness? It's like I posted in the chat a little bit above. Yeah, I posted some links at the bottom too about like a salsa framework. Yeah, like I worked one contract and I started wrapping my head around the supply chain, but it was just so complicated, so I couldn't get it. Also, I pasted a text file of a pipeline. I use GitLab mainly, so like a GitLab pipeline that I was looking to develop to secure everything, like how you're saying.
Yeah, this Witness looks like the patchlands of things, so they look equivalent. Yeah. So if you want more chat, do we have the Slack, Judy? Do we have a Slack that we can share? Do we share that?
Dang, no, this has been a great conversation, man. It's crazy because like the AI tool has just been I use a cursor mainly, so AI tool has been making me go crazy.